Well, first of all, thank you. I'm very honored to be here. This is quite a privilege. I'm really blessed. I'm blessed in so many ways. When I think about the fact that next month I'm going to be 60 years old, so that's always a blessing just to even get this far. That's not to be taken for granted. And when I think, as I've been sitting in my backyard, I've just been thinking about my life quite a bit, and just the things that I've been doing and I want to do. I think about how this is a great country, and we still have a long way to go. But this is an amazing country because it's really about not where you start, but you take that blank canvas and what's going to be your masterpiece. And I've been really fortunate there because when I think about being born without civil rights in 1961, a lot of folks would not have bet on me, given that my mother got pregnant with me when she was 16 years old. And she had me 17 days after her 17th birthday. And most folks would not have bet on her or that little black baby that she was carrying and ultimately gave birth to, that much would amount for them. And because of this amazing country, that story turns out to be a great story. I remember being a kid in Detroit, Michigan, and I was 7 years old, and it was spring of '68. And I was in the middle of the street playing baseball, playing urban baseball using a hubcap as home base, and my neighbor's cars as first, second, and third base. And I remember my mother and my grandmother on the front porch started screaming and just hollering and just in such pain, screaming that they killed him, they killed him, they killed my Martin Luther King. And I looked at them, and next thing I know, less than 15, 20 seconds later, I turned my head down the street again, was looking down the street, and next thing you know, I was looking down the barrel of a tank, and troops had taken over our neighborhood with rifles and bayonets and dogs, and we were under military siege. And my mother and grandmother started screaming, get in the house before they kill you. And I remember running for what I thought was my life and asking my mother and my grandmother what happened, and they explained to me that, they hate us. They hate us being America, that they don't want us to have anything. They killed Martin Luther King because he just wanted us to have basic civil rights. And that was the moment at 7 years old. That was the moment I remember losing what I felt was my childhood. That was the moment that I felt like I was a child of war. And that was the moment that I felt like I'm in a country that's at war with me. And that's not a great feeling. And it was something that I always wanted to reconcile and come to terms with. And it stuck with me in a profound way. Thank God my mother didn't turn out to just be beautiful. She also turned out to be brilliant. And she and I ended up going to LA, coming here to Los Angeles for a 2-week vacation. And in that 2-week vacation, she asked me, did I want to stay here? And I said, yes. She didn't ask me why, but I said yes. If she had asked me why, I would have told her I went to the movie theater earlier today, and I saw a movie trailer for 101 Dalmatians, and they said it was coming to this theater next week, and I didn't want to miss it. I never connected the dots and thought I could see it in Detroit. So we ended up staying. And that was the first big lesson, that there was an event that occurred that changed the trajectory of our lives forever. My mother ended up going back to college, and she ended up getting into UCLA. And there was a very fine gentleman at UCLA who saw my mother and saw her passion and saw her commitment to have a better life for herself and to have a better life for her child. And she got into the UCLA Film School, and he leaned in. And that's an important thought there, because it's so key to lean in. Him leaning in and helping this young Black woman who was scared. And let me tell you, when we first came here to Los Angeles, for a couple of years, we were sleeping on sofas and sleeping on floors, and kind of going around from friend to friend before we got on our feet and got ourselves a permanent place. So it was really touch and go. But getting into UCLA, education is everything. We can't do enough in this country to make sure that all of our kids are properly educated and they have an opportunity to realize their fullest potential. And because my mother was at UCLA and she ended up getting her master's degree in cinema TV production, she got a job interview at NBC. And she went to NBC and she asked them if she could have a job. And they said no. And she said, do you have an intern program where folks can work for free? And they said no. And she asked the most important question ever to change our lives forever. She asked, will you start one with me? And they said yes. And she started working at NBC, and later she became a tour guide. And when she was a tour guide, I went with her to NBC because she couldn't afford childcare. So NBC Network was my babysitter. And as a little boy, I would just hang out in the studios and try not to be noticed or make noise or get my mother in trouble. And I would just stand in the corner and watch Johnny Carson do The Tonight Show. And then I would walk across the hall and I would watch Flip Wilson do The Flip Wilson Show. Then I go down the hall and watch Red Fox do Sanford and Son. Then I go across the hall and I would watch Freddie Prinze do Cheek on the Man. And then I would go watch him do the local news. And I would watch a local sportscaster named Brian Gumbel do the sports, and a local weatherman named Pat Sajak give the weather. And I just went from studio to studio to studio. And I watched him do game shows and talk shows and soap operas and the local news. And I thought, wow, what a wonderful way to go through life, making people laugh and making television. Once again, another key moment. We had exposure, education, and then we had exposure to something that was unique and different. Up until that point, I wanted to go and work in the factory, which is a great and noble job, but I wanted to go work with my daddy at Ford Motor Company, who worked there for over 30 years, and my granddaddy, who worked at Great Lakes Steel for over 30 years, and these guys never called in a day sick. But we had a different exposure. And from there, I decided this is what I want to do, and I started doing stand-up comedy. And because I was exposed to it, opportunity. And that led to me being the youngest comedian on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, which I was 18, and that opened a lot of doors. And that also led to me writing jokes for Jimmy Walker, and I was on his writing staff as a 14-year-old kid and sitting in his apartment with David Letterman, who had just come out from Indianapolis in a red pickup truck, and Jay Leno, who was sleeping in his car, and Marty Nadler and Wayne Klein, who went on to produce shows like Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days. And we came together every Tuesday and Thursday and learned how to make funny and create funny and make people laugh. And once again, great exposure. But I remember that first time I did The Tonight Show, and I was 18 and I was standing behind the curtain, and I thought, what happens here in the next 5 minutes will change our lives once again forever. And I went out there and it went well, and fortunately I made them laugh, and that led to other opportunities and led to a show called Real People, which was the first original reality show on NBC from 79 to 84. And then I was able to travel the country. And I was able to travel the country and really see America, not just LA and New York. And a lot of people think of America as just LA and New York, and it's so much greater than that. And I was able to see these little towns, Coshocton, Ohio, and Waterloo, Iowa, on and on and on. And that was a great experience for me. And once again, I learned how to really connect and really understand the psychology of America. And with that, I decided that I didn't want to be in show business. I wanted to be in business show. And the reason why I wanted to be in business show is because I felt if I was just in show business, that I could be discarded at any moment. You're the flavor of the month this month, and then goodbye next month. I said, but if I learn the business show, then I will be able to be in business show forever. So I went to my first television convention in 1981. I was 19 years old, and it was at the New York Hilton. And I remember walking in and I asked, who's the best in the business? And they said, Al Massini. And I said, tell me about him. They just said, he's the smartest in the business. He created Entertainment Tonight. Star Search, Lifestyles, Rich and Famous, Solid Gold, blah, blah, blah. I went up and introduced myself to him. And he ended up over time becoming like a second father. And I ended up becoming the son he never had. And he was a great mentor, a great friend, and he taught me a lot. And one of the things he taught me was start where you are. And he said to me, Byron, I started my company, and at the time, his company was doing over $1 billion a year in sales. He said, start where you are. He says, I started with at my dining room table, and you can start with yours as well. And that's what I did. So I started my company from my dining room table, much like this one, almost 30 years ago. And I started by selling a once a week, 1 hour television show. And that once a week, 1 hour television show was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I remember calling all 1,300 television stations and asking them to carry my show for free. And on average, they all said no 40 or 50 times. And after about 50,000 no's, I was able to squeeze out 150 yeses. And that was my lineup at TV stations. The bad news is I kept half the commercial time and the stations kept half. I sold my half to national advertisers and they sold theirs to local advertisers. Unfortunately, a number of people didn't want to buy my advertising. So I had to teach myself that business, how to sell my advertising. Then I also had to teach myself cash flow because I could not find any investors. I could not find, people say to me, Byron, how is it that you own one of the largest privately held media companies in the world and you own it 100%? I said, do you want the real answer or do you want the Hollywood answer? And they say, well, I want the real answer. And I say, well, I own it 100%, quite frankly, because I am Black. And one of the big issues in America is that African Americans, especially African American entrepreneurs, don't have access to capital. And so I had to finance it myself. And I couldn't get a bank loan. I had some of the biggest advertisers in the world eventually as advertisers, but I couldn't wait 120 days for them to pay me. And I had to go to factors. And the factors were charging me 26% interest. So to pay for my camera crew and my sound men and my revenue, my factors, my financing, there were days I didn't eat because I couldn't afford to. And there were days that they were turning my phone off because I couldn't pay the phone bill. And my home went in and out of foreclosure so many times, probably, 14 times over about a 5-year period. It was insane. But finally, I turned the corner because I never stopped smiling and dialing and dialing and smiling and grabbing more advertisers. And finally, we turned the corner. Then one day we looked up and we were the largest producer of television shows, over 67 television shows and one of the largest privately held television libraries in the world. And with that, I had read an article in the New York Times and I saw that they had spent $23 billion to lay down fiber to the home. And I went to them and I said, I see you guys want to offer 150 channels. I like to offer you 10 of them. They said, tell me what you're thinking. And I told them I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and my daddy worked at the factories. These guys were trying to work 36 hours a day, even though they're only 24 hours in a day. And when I got in television, I'd never seen so much waste in my life. I want to bring Detroit, Michigan, automotive, assembly line mentality to making content. So when I send a camera crew to Concourse d'Elegance, Pebble Beach to shoot the car show, I want them to shoot not just car content for our car network, but shoot content for our cooking channel and shoot content for our pets channel and shoot content for our travel channel. They said, we love the idea. And we ended up launching 7 networks. And then with that success, I was able to go buy the Weather Channel. And that was a key moment. And that was a moment that I felt was important to achieve because the Weather Channel is a phenomenal brand, 11 consecutive years in a row, the most trusted news brand in America, and the 5th most trusted brand in America. And I wanted to buy that because at the end of the day, I wanted to break that ceiling. It's the first time that an African American has owned a mainstream news organization in America. And it's the first time that an African American owns a fully distributed general market cable network. And I felt that was important because I wanted young Black kids to see us play in the global leagues and not just in the Negro leagues. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just want them to know that you're global and you are worldwide. And I wanted them to see that. Just the way Berry Gordy, remember I was born in the 60s in Detroit, Michigan, helped me see myself differently because of his enormous success and other entrepreneurs like him. And I also wanted to get into the business in a way where young Black kids could see themselves, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera and owning the game. Because it's important to own the game, not participate in the game. So that's why we started buying ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox affiliates. And along the way, we produced movies and bought stories. But my favorite one is the one where I bought from Coretta Scott King. She wrote a book called My Life with Martin. And this is an amazing book. And it's one of the greatest love stories of all time, Her Life with Martin. And she said to me, Byron, you know, as Black people in this country, we've had 4 major challenges. Number 1, end slavery. Number 2, end Jim Crow, which I think was more damaging than slavery, because the moment we were freed, all of a sudden we were the enemy, and it was lynch them, burn them, kill them, incarcerate them. And that's when the genocide kicked in at a full level, at a very high level. And she said, number 3, achieve civil rights. And then she choked up and she said, and number 4, the real reason they killed my Martin, achieve economic inclusion. She said, Byron, they didn't kill my Martin over the I have a dream speech. She said they killed him over the speech he gave at Stanford University, the other America. In that speech, he said there are 2 Americas. One America has access to opportunity, education, jobs, mentorship. The other America doesn't. There are 2 Americas, and 2 Americas will not survive. We must become one America. We must have economic inclusion and education for all. She said, that's why they killed my Martin. And the hair went up on my arms and changed my life forever. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? You and Martin have done more than enough. We, this generation, will deal with the 4th and final chapter. We will deal with that economic inclusion, one America. So for me, it hasn't been about just having my company or starting a company. When my wife and I met 20 years ago, she asked me, what are you doing with your life? I said, I'm building the world's biggest media company. But along the way, I'm going to change the world for the greater good. And that is something you'll look back on and you will never regret. So folks ask me, why did you file these lawsuits for $40 billion against the world's biggest cable operators? And I said, because I'm opening the door for others behind me. And I believe sincerely in my heart that the greatest trade deficit in America is the trade deficit between white corporate America and Black America. And when we close that trade deficit between white corporate America, and white corporate America leans in and taps into the unbelievable resources and talent and creativity of the African-American entrepreneur, and we close that trade deficit, we will have an even greater country. So when I take these legal actions and I go and I spend millions and millions of dollars of my own money, well into the tens of millions of dollars, and go all the way to the Supreme Court, I'm correcting that trade deficit to make America better. Now, what I've said to the advertising community is, you're spending $170 billion a year, $170 billion a year advertising and promoting. Less than 0.1% goes to Black-owned media, Black-owned, not to be confused with Black-targeted. And I had a white guy ask me, he says, what's the difference between Black-owned and Black-targeted? And I said, I'm glad you asked me that. I said, I just had my baby girl, Chloe, and you just had your baby girl. So let me ask you as a white guy, would you be comfortable with me as a Black man controlling your little white baby's image, her likeness, how she's produced, how she's seen around the world, how others see her, how she sees herself? Can I control your little white baby's self-esteem? Would you be comfortable with that? And he said, no. I said, as a Black man, why would you expect any differently from me? Now that my baby Chloe is here, I'm not asking for a seat at the table. I'm taking one because I, as her father, have to protect her, nurture her, and make sure she knows she has a place in this world and a seat at the table. So when I say to the ad community, you must include us, that's why. So my latest mission is to make sure that the advertising community leans in. So in conclusion, what I would say to all business leaders, lean in, lean in. Don't take this Black Lives Matter movement and make it the Black Lives Matter donation movement. I almost feel like the donations is racist in itself because it says, I'm white, I'm superior, you're Black, you're inferior. You need my donation to save your poor Black ass. I don't need savings. I don't want a handout. I want a hand in partnership, an opportunity. And together as fellow Americans, we will continue to make America even greater. This is an opportunity for us to tap into unbelievable resources that we have ignored, whether it's Black or whether it's female or whether it's Asian, Hispanic, gay, Muslim. Tap in, because as we tap in, we become stronger. Our diversity is absolutely our strength. And I've seen it, and I've seen it in my own business, and I've seen us do it the right way as a nation, and I've seen it do it the wrong way. And the great prophet Martin Luther King Jr. gave us the information we needed over 50 years ago, and we must follow his wisdom. And this is a great opportunity for us to take it to the next level. And with that, I just want to say thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored to be in such great company, and I appreciate you all. And here's to us making it better. Thank you.